bro, as an artist, growing up for me, bro, like, fuck Boston, bro.
I gave this city my love and they gave me my respect. These cold Boston streets, something I'll never forget. Never was the cause, only the effect. It taught me if you gon' come, better come correct. This is WG, Dirty Hawks, but you knew that. Send one in mine, better know we sending two back. You know my city breed, the realest you gon' never meet. And if I vouch for you, stand up is what you better be.
Growing up in Boston, you would always hear stories of New Edition, Belle Biv DeVoe, Edo G, one of my personal favorites, and you had groups such as Wise Guys, which in my opinion was one of the illest groups that was assembled out of the city.
I'm so Boston, you can tell by my beef in it. Don't just carry the gat, nigga, I sleep with it. I move the word so fast.
And as we transitioned into the 2000s, you know, we had a lot of popular artists in the city, such as Terminology, Mantera, who was a part of that Wise Guys clique, Frankie Wainwright, Smoke Bolger, Millies, Ello and the Untouchables. I remember running home to see Ello, you know, jump up off the steps on BET, him being from the neighborhood. And, you know, that was a cool time.
When I say fuck Boston, I don't mean fuck Boston as a city, because I live here, I love Boston, you know what I'm saying? And I carry Boston with me everywhere I went, you know what I'm saying? But I just feel as though Boston, we don't give each other a chance. Before we work with each other, we work with somebody outside of this shit. You know what I'm saying? We always feel like running away from this shit is the key, you know what I'm saying? But it's only good now that way because the shit is not, it's not a platform to stand on. But if we're not creating a platform to stand on, then we gotta go elsewhere, bro.
I just think that the city's not really geared towards it as a whole. That's not really the main engine of our economy in Boston, Massachusetts. Therefore, you don't have all the other outlets pitching in minor ways to make a music scene even greater. Like in LA, media, that's the big industry out there. So there's gonna be ways that you can fit yourself in because everybody's deriving revenue from this industry. Whereas Boston is more like healthcare and schools, you know what I mean? So possibly if you wanna be a doctor or you wanna be a professor, you're in the right place, you know what I mean? But doing music, the city's not doing things to help advocate it, and there's not a lot of big companies that are here that are doing things that help advocate it. So that's really the overshadowing thing. That's really it. As far as from a corporate kind of like business structure of why it doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like it's a thing because we don't have nothing here. And if we used to have something here for artists to help them gain the exposures they need and stuff like that, artists wouldn't feel like they had to move out their own city to feel like they're gonna blow up, you know what I'm saying? But we have no platform here that focuses on the dope artists that we have here. So it's like, how can, it's like, it's a win-win each side. Like, I'm an artist, I feel like, okay, I'm not getting no exposure. I've been doing this for 5-6 years, and like, I gotta move to LA to try to get somebody's eyes, somebody's space to help me get to that next level. But if we had a platform just like Dropzne, you know what I'm saying, it would help a lot of artists not feel like they have to move out of the city to get where they need to be in this music industry.
Literally, one of the questions always comes up, oh, so who's popping out in Boston? Who's made it out of Boston? You know what I'm saying? And we have our front runners that we know are doing their thing. We mention these people and it's like, oh, but you know, they're not Future level, they're not Migos level, they're not da-da-da-da, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's a thing, you know what I mean? And that's still a conversation that we have to fight and get over, but you know, at least we know what we need to fight, you feel me? Yeah. But I think that's one of the biggest things, bro, has been just a heavy lack of documentation, you know what I mean? Do those people even know, you know what I'm saying, the New Edition came from Boston, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, I didn't even have that conversation with them, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, the documentation, bro. There's been plenty of people signed out of here, bro, you know what I mean? Like the situations went how they went, whatever, but there was still people being talked about here. There was still movement here that just nobody on the outside really knew about.
I'm mad because I feel as though Boston is this historic city And we have, you know, everybody talks about how much history and how much, you know, nostalgia there is to this city, but it's like we also played a big role in creating this culture we call hip hop, you know, and other genres. And it's like, I feel like just because we might be next door to New York, we get kind of shadowed, you know. You think of New Edition, you think of all the movies that played a part, you know, In Too Deep, and all these monumental things that were put together, and they kind of shaped the way the culture came to be. So, and I'm not saying that it's about giving credit, but it's about like knowing your history.
I'm from Roxbury, swagger dripping, floor slippery. When the gun jammed, God told me wasn't meant to be.
In 2010, there was this wave of music videos, and that's not to take nothing away from artists that was already doing it, but J.Ab and Eaze Dollarz had this song called Paid in Full that kind of started this frenzy in the city when you talk about music.
Paid in full, you can't nothing but the money bring me down, bring me down, bring me down, bring me down, I'm paid in full.
Do you think Boston has a specific sound?
Nah, we don't even have an identity. Like, I don't know, bro. I can't even answer that. Like, why we're not getting the recognition. I don't know, bro. I really don't know. That's probably because it's not authentic. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody want to go hear somebody. You sound like a whole different city. You know what I'm saying? Like where y'all from? Like, you know, that's a skip. That's like, oh, they sound like them. Like, that's a skip. That's how I feel.
This is the Bridgeside Cypher. My name's Aaron King. 3, 2, yo.
Yeah, just embracing the diversity of sounds within Boston and not trying to create one. You know, I think that, you know, we've lived in the shadow of New York since the birth of hip hop, you know, and I don't think we're not gonna be like Atlanta, create our own sound where everyone's gonna be like, that's the Boston sound like Atlanta did, but we can add so much complexity to so many different sounds that we've learned, that we've adapted from, you know, just kind of old classic East Coast hip hop. And so I think, yeah, just embracing those different types of sounds, collaborating and kind of building, we're in a unique position to kind of do that and cross those boundaries than other cities who kind of just have one identity and everyone's just trying to fit within that one mold.
A lot of people in Boston, they idolize the New York and LA people. They want to be New York, they want to be LA. Some of them even want to be Atlanta, but then they have this business mind of like, I have to make it the New York, LA way. I have to put an exorbitant amount of money into my music, get very little return until somebody comes out and says, hey, I want to sign you, right? And they literally like buy and hire, you know, mostly black bodies, right? To loan money to that they know that they can't pay back. They're predatory loans, a lot of these deals, right? And so it's like a lot of Boston artists suffer from that mentality. I need to get signed, I need to get signed, I need to get signed, I need to get, and that's one of the biggest glass ceilings that comes from just the artists themselves. The ones who recognize, I need to sign myself, I need to validate myself, boom, they're already a little more free. They're already going out doing more shows, they already have more fan base, they're already selling merch. They realize, hey, I can build a whole business structure myself, about my community, and for my people. Now, where they hit a glass ceiling, boom, because there's multiple glass ceilings, is the grants, right? The grants, the venues and the gatekeepers, right? All white people signing the grants, white people owning the venues, white people giving us the opportunity, right? And so they get to pick and choose who they feel like they're comfortable with, who they feel like they actually deserves the money and deserves the business, and they're not doing it with the intention of actually helping the black community or actually helping the music or artistic community.
All these other places have their own issues. They have their own gang violence. They have everything that we have. Sometimes at a larger base. You know what I mean? Even so, here the problem is you know everything's more macro. You know, meaning smaller. So it's kind of more visible in certain ways because it's such a concentrated way to look at it. Whereas in other places it's wide and spread out. So it's kind of like, You know, people that got problems with people probably won't even see each other a whole year. You know what I mean? Whereas here, everybody sees each other, everybody knows each other, everybody, you know, and it kind of like trickles into what the perception is around the promoters and everything around the city, because they know really what's going on, more so as a promoter in, you know, in another larger market base might know things can go on, but they don't have like a kind of like a real knowledge of it. So they're more likely to be like, okay, well, this is what it is. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think for a while we've been bursting through institutions that have been very blatantly racist. I think that some of those institutions will still open up, but at this point we gotta create our own shit. Like, I think that's the next step, is like, who's gonna start putting money together to invest in a space? I mean, we're in Dorchester Arts Project right now, so this is another platform.
I would say, honestly, one of the main reasons we started the Cypher was because of what we were seeing and what we saw of our peers, was that there weren't a lot of good venues in Boston who were trying to help hip hop, you know, or even trying to host hip hop shows, or were trying to put on up and coming hip hop artists and give them a chance. You know, probably only like 2-3 venues who would even have hip hop at all. And then if you tried to organize your own events, there was a lot of roadblocks, you know, when you said it was hip hop. They'd be like, oh, we don't do hip hop here. You know what I mean? Which I really think was kind of just some underlying racist bullshit, because they don't want, you know what I mean, like a certain crowd at their, and we got emails like that, you know, they're trying to be PC about it, but it's pretty clear what they mean, right? You don't want this crowd at your venue, like, and so that was just frustrating, you know, the few venues. It's tough for them. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. Middle East being a place that I have performed and have been to great shows, but you know, it's a hustle for them and the promoters there, and there's a lot of pay for play situations, which is kind of, you know, preying on young up and coming artists. So, you know, we just thought, all right, let's just go to the street. You know what I mean? Like, fucking free. You don't have to pay anything. People can still get out their music. People can still kind of practice, you know, perform in front of a group of people, which is really what we're all trying to do. And so that was kind of what we had heard from people, and one of the reasons why we started doing the site.
Astrologists and astrology, what your knowledge is. Stars are lit inside of it, all of it. What did God invent? Your consciousness, and consciously put it back in your conscious shit. Conscious shit, Osiris, but obelisk with my confidence. Islam is with. Pray on them 5 a day and salat with it. Arrow whack with it. Haitian flag with the black in it. Put your back in it. Throw your cash like this crack in it. Imagine it. If you don't push the line, then I'm dragging it.
In Cambridge, you know, and this is true throughout the whole Boston area, I mean, it's really one of the most gentrified cities in the country, you know, and Dorchester's dealing with it, Roxbury's dealing with it, you know, everybody's dealing with that.
You know, we came from a different culture, you know what I mean? We don't have to like get all into it, but you know, all those shows I was booking all over the years were in Alston or Cambridge, or, you know, I tried to be where like the college kids were, right? Because those are the people that I knew. But that's because I came up from my like sort of white privilege silo as like like a suburban like punk basically, right? And so I was like kept away from the culture in Dorchester and Roxbury through the systematic racism that like, you know, basically permeates every aspect of society. You know, like we're not unique to it. Just because we're artists and we're like hip with each other and more open-minded, you know, doesn't mean that I wasn't, you know, when I realized how I've been kept away from my brothers and sisters and family, you know, like in Dorchester and Roxbury, like, yeah, it was a great, you know, discovery for me, really.
I mean, it doesn't really have to be said, bro. Like, I mean, there's still some separations in races in the city, but there's still like, shout out to the people that aren't, that do love the culture, that give to the culture, that breathe and sleep the culture, that aren't black, that aren't into the culture, that just enjoy the culture, that make moves for the culture, that aren't black. You know what I mean? Shout out to them.
For DAP, it's not like, you know, it's not just like, oh, we want to be known, like to be known, or like, you know what I mean, for like some sort of success. Like, you know, we want to be known because it's important that this resource is in the hands of the hyper-local community that, you know, that it should be serving or whatever. You know what I mean? And not just Dorchester, but Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Hyde Park. Like, you know, the region, like the part of the city that has like systematically been, you know, kept away from the resources, right?
DAP has become one of these resources. Right? Now, DAP is like, you know, we talk about, hey, they have an open mic, they have all these artists here, it's a community, it's a resource that people can go to. We need more places like this.
I think we need to put more pressure on venues. You know, who knows what's going on with COVID now, but maybe next year there'll be a new opportunity where venues are doing things to try and get, you know, people people in that they hadn't before. So maybe it's an opportunity for hip hop to kind of break into a lot of venues that it hadn't before. I think that's one of the main things, you know, is kind of a few maybe key promoters who are kind of that link between, you know, artists and venues.
So we have this app coming out, and the app is focused primarily on up-and-coming artists. And you look at all the problems up-and-coming artists face, and it's not so that their music is bad. It's just that there's no consistent, reliable way to get their artwork out. So now that I'm back here in Boston, I definitely see an improvement as to the collaborative effort here. But we have a long way to go. And hopefully Dropzne, the app, can we can kind of be one of the pieces to that movement. It's not gonna be just in any individual platform, any individual creative. It's gonna take a collective effort, and you know, we're here to help.
Hey, yeah. You know they say, you only get to be the man once, you feel me? Every other time you just hold it down. First thing Brody told me, cash up, then you get your racks up, then I'm